Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're kind of pushing back on that classic American idea of rugged individualism. Digging into Malcolm Gladwell's really interesting concept of a culture of honor, mostly from his book Outliers. We'll explore how these super deep cultural, historical legacies, especially in the American South, can shape how we act, without us even realizing it, even with something as basic as, well, violence. It makes you rethink personal responsibility, doesn't it?
It really does. Yeah, we're sort of moving beyond just blaming the individual, which is often the easy way out. What's fascinating, I think, is how violence might not always be a personal choice or failing. It can be almost like a reflex, a predictable response based on cultural stuff passed down for, well, centuries. It challenges that whole American idea of liberty being purely individual. Sometimes it's guided by these old unspoken rules, this code.
Okay, so this code, this intense culture of honor, where did it actually come from?
Well, the sources we looked at trace it back mostly to Scots-Irish herders, the ones who settled the early American South, the backcountry especially.
Herders. Yeah, right. So their wealth wasn't land, it was animals, livestock.
Exactly. Cattle, sheep, pigs, stuff that could be stolen pretty easily on a farmer's field. Mobile wealth,
Yeah, okay. And I guess there wasn't much formal law enforcement back then.
Precisely. No reliable police, no strong courts out there on the frontier, so you had to protect your own. Your reputation was your security system. You had to be known as someone tough, someone you just didn't mess with.
So an insult wasn't just, rude. It was a direct threat to your actual livelihood.
Yeah, a direct economic threat. It meant you might be seen as weak, as someone whose stuff could be taken. Defending your honor was a practical necessity, survival almost.
And that way of thinking just stuck around, especially in places like Appalachia.
It seems so.
Yeah.
The isolation, the rugged terrain there, it kind of reinforced that self-reliance. It basically reproduced that original herding culture.
You see those famous feuds, right? Like in Harlan, Kentucky, the Howards and Turners.
Right, exactly. Those weren't just, personal arguments gone wrong. Gladwell frames them as people acting out an inherited script. Defending family honor was everything.
But this isn't just history, is it? You mentioned science.
Yeah, this is where it gets really compelling, I think. There was a groundbreaking study in the 90s. Nisbet and Cohen, University of Michigan, they did this really clever experiment, sort of an experimental ethnography.
Okay, what did they do?
So they got male students, some from the north, some from the south, and they had them walk down this narrow hallway. And as they walked, a Confederate, someone working with the researchers, would bump into them and mutter an insult, called them an asshole. Pretty subtle.
Well, and what happened? Big difference.
Huge difference. The Southern students, they showed significant jumps in cortisol, that's the stress hormone, and testosterone, the aggression hormone. They also reported feeling like their masculine reputation was on the line.
And the Northern students?
Mostly just shrugged it off. Annoyed, maybe, but physiologically, relatively unaffected.
Wow, so it actually shows up in your body chemistry, this insult aggression cycle. It's not just an attitude.
Exactly. It's like the cultural script is wired in deep down.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop there. Society reinforces it too. They found, for example, that employers in the South were sometimes more understanding, more accepting of job applicants who admitted to violence if it was framed as defending their honor.
Really? That's something.
And it's not just the U.S. South. You see similar honor codes, often with, specific roles for men and women and upholding them in lots of places. The Mediterranean, Middle East.
And if we bring that back to today, does this maybe help explain some difficult patterns? I've seen stats.
Well, people do connect it. The data showing that I think it's 7 of the top 10 states for firearm deaths are in the South. Higher rates of school shootings, too, in states identified with this honor culture. It suggests maybe a kind of environment where violence is perhaps more permissible under certain circumstances. A permissive environment, as some put it.
Okay, but that feels maybe too simple. It can't just be this one cultural thing, right?
Yeah.
What are the other arguments, the pushback?
Oh, absolutely. And it's crucial to get that nuance. For a balanced view, yeah. Critics raise really important points. One major factor is the legacy of white supremacy and racial violence, especially post-Civil War. Groups like the Equal Justice Initiative, the EJI, they document how violence was systematically used to maintain racial control. That's distinct from, though maybe tangled up with, the honor code.
Right, a very different motivation for violence.
Definitely. Then there's the geography debate. This honor culture wasn't only in the herding highlands, it was also strong among wealthy planters in the lowlands. So it wasn't just about herders protecting livestock, it adapted.
Okay. And the study itself, the insult study.
Well, it's compelling evidence, but you always have to be careful with correlation versus causation. Other things are going on too. Poverty, religion, different economic factors, they all play a role. It's complex. The goal isn't one answer, but a richer understanding.
Gotcha. So it's part of the picture, but not the whole picture.
Exactly. It encourages us to look past just the individual and think about these bigger cultural scripts and the systems that support them, how they shape behavior.
So wrapping up, what's the big takeaway here? This deep dive seems to show that our behavior is, well, way more connected to our collective past, our inherited culture, than we might think. It shifts the view, doesn't it? From seeing people as unique outliers to maybe understanding them more as inliers, shaped by their cultural environment.
And that shift has real consequences, for public policy, for how we approach law enforcement, for trying to resolve conflicts. Maybe we need to address the cultural scripts, not just the individual actions.
Definitely something to think about. And maybe for you, listening, what's a belief or a way of acting that you got from your family, your culture, maybe without even realizing it? And, does it actually help you today? Or is it maybe time to let it go? Something to chew on until our next deep dive.
So let me ask you this question. How much of your success, really, do you believe is solely your own doing?
It's a tough one, right?
It really is. And today on the deep dive, we're getting into that, inspired by Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers. We're tackling success and legacy, what we pass on.
Yeah, our mission, if you like, is to sort of peel back the layers on those often invisible advantages, the things we inherit that shape where we end up.
Exactly. We're going to unpack how success is, well, it's complicated. It's this tapestry woven from way more than just individual effort.
We'll look at some, frankly, startling stats on social mobility, critique this idea of pure meritocracy, and importantly, think about how you can be intentional about the legacy you create.
Okay, so let's dive right in. Gladwell's core argument in Outliers is pretty provocative. He says extraordinary achievement isn't just talent or grinding away.
Right, it's this mix, this confluence, he calls it, of hidden advantages, cultural legacies, even just being born at the right time, having unique opportunities land in your lap. It really goes against that whole self-made narrative.
And there's data.
Oh, yeah. The data is pretty striking. In the U.S., for instance, something like over 50% of where you end up income-wise can be traced back to your father's position.
50%, wow.
Yeah, it makes the U.S. one of the lowest, actually, in terms of social mobility among similar nations. You compare that to, say, Canada or Denmark, Norway, places where it's less than 20%, a huge difference.
So, okay, it's clearly not just about inheriting money then. What else is being passed on?
Well, that's key. There's what sociologists call cultural capital. Think of it as like the unspoken rules, knowing how to navigate institutions, how to advocate for yourself effectively, maybe in school or later in your career.
Right, knowing how things really work.
Exactly. And then there's social capital, basically, who you know, the networks, the relationships you inherit or gain access to.
That feels like the currency of opportunity sometimes, doesn't it? Defining who gets access long before talent even gets a look in.
Precisely. I mean, think about startups. That classic friends and family funding round. That's leveraging inherited social and financial capital, plain and simple.
It highlights something interesting, too, the difference between just getting advice, like mentorship.
And sponsorship.
Yeah.
Sponsorship is when someone actively uses their influence to open a door for you. Historically, those good old boys clubs, they were engines of sponsorship, connecting people based on existing ties.
Okay, so if success is so tied up in these inherited advantages, this cultural and social stuff, I mean, doesn't that just blow up the whole idea of meritocracy?
Well, it certainly challenges it, fundamentally. The ideal of meritocracy is, appealing. Talent, effort, smarts, that's what matters. The best rise to the top sounds fair.
Right.
But the critique, even from Michael Young, who coined the term satirically, actually, was that it could just create a new kind of elite. And in practice, the big issue is that opportunities are just not equal to begin with.
So it kind of ignores the starting line.
Right. And it can put all the weight of failure onto the individual, making it seem like structural barriers, don't exist or don't matter.
You see this play out, right? Like that Silicon Valley pain index. The numbers are wild.
Yeah, it's stark. Like 9 households holding over 60% of the wealth there, and a single parent needing, over $160,000 just for basic needs.
It shows how a system that we praise for innovation can create these massive inequalities. Wealth just buys more advantages for the kids.
It creates this arms race for credentials, as some call it, where getting ahead isn't just about being bright. It's about who can afford the elite tutors, the unpaid internships, the network building events, using wealth to secure the next generation spot.
But it's not all one-sided, is it? There's a paradox here. Privilege can bring its own burdens.
Absolutely. Inherited wealth isn't always a psychological free ride. It can bring feelings of maybe not having earned your place, fear of losing it all, entitlement, even a lack of drive.
That old saying, shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations.
Exactly. It points to that fragility. Something like 70% of families lose control of assets across generations, suggesting these underlying issues are real.
But then you have the counterexamples, people who did start with very little, Oprah, J.K. Rowling. Their stories show it's not purely deterministic.
Definitely not. They embody what psychologists call hardiness, that perseverance, the adaptability, the sheer resilience, that ability to thrive despite adversity. That itself can be a powerful legacy forged in difficulty. Agency still matters a lot.
Which brings us to the idea that legacy isn't just something you passively receive, it's something you actively build.
Precisely. And often the most meaningful legacies aren't financial at all. They're about values, virtues, the life lessons you impart.
Is there a way to be intentional about that?
Yeah, one really interesting strategy is creating an ethical will or a legacy letter. It's not about dividing assets. It's about writing down your core values, your life lessons, your hopes for the future generations, capturing that wisdom.
And just talking about it too, I suppose, across generations.
Crucial. Open conversations about wealth, yes, but also about values. It helps ensure things are passed on smoothly with shared understanding so the legacy actually enriches lives rather than complicates them.
So, thinking about Gladwell's work, it really pushes us to see success differently. Not just individual grit, but this whole interplay with opportunity and what came before us.
Right. The self-made idea is largely a myth, or at least incomplete. Recognizing this isn't about taking away from hard work, it's about maybe appreciating your own starting point a bit more clearly.
And seeing the invisible hurdles others might be facing. Yeah.
Exactly.
So this awareness, it kind of compels you, doesn't it, to think about the legacy you are creating. How can you move from just being a recipient of whatever opportunities you had to actively shaping something positive for the next generation?
Maybe start by talking to an older relative. Ask about their journey, the opportunities they had or maybe didn't have. Understand what they passed on to you.
Or identify a skill, maybe a value that was passed down. How can you use that right now, today?
And ultimately, consider what you will do through your work, your family, your community. What positive legacy will you intentionally build? You hear it all the time, right?
Sure.
Someone describes themselves as, self-made, like they're huge success, purely down to their own grit and talent. It's a great story. But what if that's not, well, not the whole story? What if there's this hidden architecture, this whole web of other factors shaping who gets to the top? Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into exactly that, the invisible architecture of success, looking closely at Gladwell's Outliers. Our mission, to unpack all those systemic things, those surprising coincidences that play a role. It's more than just willpower. Get ready for some maybe counterintuitive ideas. This is your shortcut to understanding just how complex success really is, not so linear. Let's jump in.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is this idea Gladwell calls the outlier paradox. It's this counterintuitive thing where something that looks like an advantage can actually backfire. More isn't always better, basically.
Okay, that's intriguing, this inverted U-curve idea.
Yeah.
Give you an example, like where does more become not better?
Sure. Well, think about the U.S. healthcare system. It spends about 50% more per person than comparable countries, right? But the outcomes aren't necessarily superior. Sometimes that extra spending just creates, well, inefficiency.
Right.
Or take huge companies like General Motors back in the day. At their absolute peak size, they actually became less agile, less nimble. Too much of a good thing, perhaps.
So an excess can slow you down. But then Gladwell also talks about desirable difficulties, doesn't he? Like a manageable challenge, dyslexia maybe, or losing a parent, forcing someone to develop new coping strategies, different skills.
Exactly. It's not about wanting hardship, obviously. It's about how you adapt when faced with a difficulty that's, well, difficult but not completely overwhelming. It pushes you.
And speaking of being pushed, another huge piece is just the confluence of timing and opportunity.
Okay, confluence of timing and opportunity. Sounds a bit like luck, though, doesn't it? How does that fit into something structured, like, say, Canadian hockey? Well, it's fascinating. Research shows this relative age effect. A surprising number of elite players born in January, February, March.
Why is that?
Because of the age cutoff dates for youth leagues. Being a few months older when you're, say, 9 or 10 gives you a real physical edge. That means better coaching, more ice time. It snowballs. A systemic boost right from the start.
That is a powerful structural point. But is any disadvantage good? Or does it have to be manageable? I remember a BYU study. Didn't you find that among the very top NHL players, the ones born later in the year actually did better?
Precisely. That's the underdog effect. Overcoming that initial size disadvantage forces them to develop maybe better technical skills, more focused practice habits, even greater mental toughness. They had to adapt differently to overcome that manageable difficulty.
Right. It connects back. And that highlighted the mix of individual drive and, well, rare access. Like Bill Gates. Born in 1953, perfect timing for the computer revolution. And crucially, he got access to a high school computer in 1968. I mean, how rare was that then?
Incredibly rare. It let him rack up those legendary 10,000 hours when the field was just starting. But, Gates himself points out it's not just luck. He talks about needing that fanatical interest, the aptitude, and crucially, the ability to notice opportunities others might just miss.
You have to seize the chance.
Absolutely.
And speaking of seizing things, and that 10,000-hour idea, you have to talk about the Beatles, right?
Yeah.
Their time in Hamburg, playing, 5 or 6 90-minute sets a day, 7 days a week.
Grueling stuff. That immense volume of performance, that's where they honed their craft, their stage presence. It fits Gladwell's model nicely.
But that 10,000-hour rule, it's been debated, hasn't it?
Oh, definitely. Academics point out it's a bit of an oversimplification. The original researchers even pushed back on Gladwell's use of it. Innate ability matters, too. And how much practice explains success varies wildly. Like 26% in games, maybe, but only 1% in professional achievement.
Only 1%?
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. So the equation isn't just adding things up. It's more like multiplying. Talent times deliberate practice times opportunity times the systemic context. It's a whole different way of looking at it.
It really shifts things, doesn't it? Practice matters, sure, but maybe it's almost pointless without the talent, the chance, the right environment. It kind of dismantles that simple self-made story.
Fundamentally.
And understanding that complex equation, well, it helps us see some blind spots we have, societally and even psychological.
Exactly. Like the whole myth of meritocracy concept from sociology. The idea that society only rewards talent and effort. Well, sociologists argue it can sometimes mask those structural barriers and maintain existing class structures. We're just outlining the concept here, of course.
It's a challenging idea. And then there's us, personally. We all kind of do this, right? The self-serving bias.
Psychology 101. We tend to credit our successes to ourselves, our talent, our hard work. But our failures, that was bad luck or, external factors.
It protects our ego, I guess.
Yeah.
But it makes it really hard to see how much those external things helped us succeed too. Like we forget the stage directions and the set design in our own life movie.
Well put.
So wrapping this up, what's the big picture for you listening? Success isn't just you acting alone. It emerges from this complex dance between you and the systems around you. The key takeaway isn't despair, though. While you can't always change the whole system overnight, you can work on your mindset. Cultivate that openness, that ability to notice and seize opportunities, like those innovators who turned accidents into breakthroughs. Be ready. Be observant. And that leads to a final thought for you to chew on. If success really depends so much on this invisible architecture, timing, systems, cultural legacies, how should that change how we think about finding talent or designing education?
Yeah.
How can we maybe build systems that create more of those extraordinary opportunities for everyone, not just the lucky few? How do we really foster potential across the board? Something to ponder, isn't it? Okay, let's dive in today. We're looking at something huge, culturally huge, the 10,000-hour rule.
Right. The idea Malcolm Gladwell really pushed in Outliers.
Exactly. That, anyone can hit world-class skill just by putting in 10,000 hours.
Look at Beatles in Hamburg. Right. That was the classic example.
Yeah. Playing all those hours
Right.
became this sort of democratic ideal for mastery, though I bet their practice involved a few German beers too.
Well, here's the twist. K. Anders Ericsson,
Yeah.
the actual researcher Gladwell cited,
Yeah.
he later said Gladwell's interpretation was wrong in several ways.
Really wrong. How so?
He clarified that 10,000 hours, it was just an average for one very specific group, elite violinists by age 20.
Ah, okay. Just an average.
And crucially, he added they were nowhere near masters even then. Still developing.
Wow. Okay. So our mission today feels pretty clear then. We need to get past that catchy number, that metric, and really dig into what Erickson actually meant by deliberate practice, the real mechanics of mastery.
Exactly, because it's much more nuanced.
So if it's not just about, clocking hours, what is this deliberate practice? Lay it out for us.
Okay. Well, think of it as the opposite of just mindless repetition or naive practice. It's got these core pillars, 4 of them.
All right. Pillar 1.
First, it's targeted and structured. You don't just play the whole song over and over. You break it down.
Like isolating a tricky chord change. Or for a speaker, maybe just focusing on, say, body language.
Precisely. Breaking complex skills into the smallest possible parts. Second, it's focused and intentional.
Meaning?
Meaning it demands real mental effort, high cognitive load. You're actively working to improve, moving from that state of conscious incompetence.
Where you know you're bad at it and why.
Right. Towards unconscious competence, where it becomes second nature, automatic.
Okay. Structured, focused. What's third?
Third, it's absolutely feedback driven. You have to know how you're doing.
You need that critique loop.
Yes. You need to understand what good looks like and get clear feedback on how you measure up. Without that, you're flying blind.
Makes sense. And the last one.
Finally, and this is key, it has to be challenging and uncomfortable. It constantly pushes you just beyond your current ability.
A stretch zone.
That's the one. You're not comfortable. You're straining a bit, making errors, learning from them. It's like lifting weights. You don't get stronger doing easy reps.
Right. So it's the opposite of just going through the motions, which often leads to hitting a plateau. Yeah.
Exactly. Naive practice leads to plateaus. Deliberate practice breaks through them.
Okay. But here's where it gets, really interesting for me. The debates around this. You mentioned the average thing, that myth of the average. 10,000 was just one average. I read about chess masters. Some took 3,000 hours, others over 20,000.
That's right. Huge variability. It kills the idea of a single magic number.
And then there's the whole nature versus nurture thing. Innate talent. Does that just get ignored?
Well, Erickson didn't ignore it, but deliberate practice theory emphasizes the practice part. Still, innate ability, genetics, they can influence how fast you learn, maybe your ultimate ceiling. It's complex.
So talent isn't nothing, but practice is the key lever.
That's a good way to put it. And it connects to another point. World class isn't some fixed level. It's a moving target, a social construct.
Meaning, as everyone gets better with better training, the bar keeps rising.
Exactly. Plus, get this. Studies show the quantity of practice, those hours, might only explain a fraction of the difference in skill at the elite level.
Only a fraction. Like how much?
Well, in music, one meta-analysis suggested maybe around 21%.
21%. Wow, so almost 80% is other stuff.
Other factors, yeah. Strategy, psychology, maybe innate factors, quality of coaching. It's not just hours.
Okay, so bringing this all together, what does this mean for you listening? Trying to learn a new skill today, maybe online, without a formal coach sometimes.
Right. How do you apply this more complex picture? There's a kind of modern self-directed framework you can use.
Okay, let's hear it.
First, deconstruct. Break down that skill you want. Really analyze its components. Second, set stretch goals. Aim just beyond what you can currently do comfortably.
The uncomfortable zone again.
Yep. Third, practice with focus. Seriously minimize distractions. Deep work. Fourth, analyze performance.
Okay, so actively critique yourself. Or get feedback somehow.
Both, ideally. What worked, what didn't, why. Fifth, adjust. Based on that analysis, tweak your approach. And finally, sixth, repeat. It's a cycle. Deconstruct, stretch, focus, analyze, adjust, repeat.
And you mentioned the digital world.
Yeah.
How does feedback work there?
Well, think about online communities, forums, open source projects where you can get code reviews, even just recording yourself and watching it back. These can be powerful, modern feedback loops you can substitute for a traditional coach sometimes.
That makes a lot of sense. So the big takeaway here isn't the number 10,000 at all, is it?
No, not really.
It's that the path to expertise isn't a numbers game, fundamentally. It's about making the hours count. quality over just quantity.
Absolutely. It's about intentional, high-quality, self-directed effort.
Hmm. That really reframes it.
So maybe the provocative thought to leave everyone with is this. How will you shift? Shift from just, passively consuming information, reading about skills,
Yeah.
to actively, intentionally practicing,
Yeah.
to actually creating and growing through this deliberate process.
That's a great question. And maybe a concrete action item for people. Choose one skill, something relevant, work or personal life, and commit. Say 10 focused hours a week for the next 3 months. But really apply these principles we talked about. Break it down, stretch, give feedback, adjust.
That's a fantastic way to start putting this into practice, literally.
Okay, so we've all kind of grown up with that classic picture of success, haven't we? It's all about the individual talent, tons of hard work, grit, that whole pull yourself up by your bootstraps thing. It feels right, doesn't it? But we got to ask, is that really the full picture? Like the complete picture?
Yeah, and that's exactly the belief Malcolm Gladwell tackles in Outliers. He really pushes back on it. He argues that success isn't just about, what one person does. It's more like a complex mix.
Yeah.
Unique opportunities, cultural stuff, specific circumstances all coming together. So for this deep dive, we're really going to dig into how his work challenges that core belief we have about how people actually get ahead.
Okay, let's break that down for you. Because, yeah, that common idea feeds into what some people call the myth of meritocracy. And our own minds kind of make it hard to see those outside factors sometimes. Things like cognitive biases.
Right. Like the just world hypothesis. That feeling deep down that, well, people must get what they deserve, good or bad.
And the fundamental attribution error, where we automatically think someone's success or failure is all about them, their personality, not their situation.
Exactly. And these aren't just like psych terms. They really shape how we look at success. They make us kind of quick to blame people for failures.
Blaming the victim.
Yeah, pretty much. We focus on supposed personal flaws and just ignore the wider context, the societal things that really influence outcomes. And that there's data on this. Look at social mobility in the U.S. It's surprisingly low. Like, a son often ends up inheriting about half of his dad's income position.
Half. Wow.
Yeah. Compare that to, say, Norway or Canada. It's less than 20%. It really makes you question how equal the opportunity actually is,
Definitely. And beyond those biases, there's this other massive factor we often just don't talk about enough. Simple luck.
Oh, user.
Was that simulation, Italian physicists, Lucchino and Raspisarda. They modeled success, didn't they?
They did over like a 40-year career span. And the results were, well, kind of stunning. The simulation showed that the most talented individuals, they were rarely the most successful ones.
Really? Not the most talented?
Nope. Often, the biggest success went to people with pretty average talent, but who got really, really lucky.
Average talent? High luck.
Exactly. It kind of blows up the idea of a simple, naive meritocracy where we think talent is all it takes. It ignores that random chance element completely. Maybe we're missing talented people just because they haven't caught that lucky break.
So one lucky break might lead to another. Is that kind of like the compounding advantage idea Gladwell talks about?
Precisely. He calls it the Matthew effect. Advantage builds on advantage. Think about Canadian hockey players.
Okay.
The cutoff date for youth leagues is often January 1st. So kids born in Jan, Feb, March, they're just a bit older, maybe a bit bigger and more coordinated than kids born later in the year.
Right, when they're starting out.
Yeah. So they get noticed earlier, pick for the better teams, get better coaching, more ice time, and that small, totally arbitrary advantage, just their birthday it compounds. Over years, it looks like pure talent, but it started with luck.
Makes you wonder where else that applies.
Yeah.
So what about the whole 10,000 hour rule then? Does that still fit in?
Well, yes and no. It's not quite how people usually think about it.
Yeah.
It's not just about grinding out 10,000 hours. It's about having the incredible, often unique opportunity to even get those hours in.
Ah, okay. The opportunity itself.
Think of the Beatles playing constantly in Hamburg, like 8 hours a night, way before anyone knew them, or Bill Gates getting crazy early access to computers when almost no one else did.
Right, that wasn't common then.
Not at all. So their ability to meet that 10,000 hour mark was a result of circumstance, of opportunity, not just pure willpower.
Okay, so if we accept all this, the biases, the luck, the compounding advantages, it kind of shifts things, doesn't it? It feels like there's a responsibility there. We can't just analyze it. We need to act on it.
I think so, yeah. If you start seeing success, at least partly, as a gift of circumstance, It encourages a bit of humility, right? And it really calls for what philosophers term fair equality of opportunity, which basically means we need to actively work to create more real chances for people to succeed, not just for those who already have a head start.
Designing systems differently.
Yeah, systems where your background, where you grew up, your family, it doesn't predetermine your shot at success quite so much.
So that could mean concrete stuff, like
Mm-hmm.
I know some places have early college high schools, helping kids get college credit, or even degrees while still in high school, often at low cost.
Exactly. Or things like anonymizing resumes during hiring, taking off names, demographic info so biases don't unconsciously creep in, focusing just on the skills.
Systemic changes.
But individual actions count too, a lot. Think about mentorship. That's a really powerful personal way to offer guidance, open doors, share networks, things someone might miss out on otherwise.
Providing some of that crucial opportunity, person to person.
You're basically extending that gift of circumstance yourself.
So wrapping this up for you, our listener, this deep dive really shows that success isn't just that simple bootstrap story. It's way more complex. Circumstance, legacy, opportunity, they shape it profoundly.
Yeah, it's a big paradigm shift. And it means really that we as a society have to take some collective responsibility. We need to build a world where more people genuinely get that chance to succeed. Equity has to come first for true competition to even make sense.
So maybe think about this. What's one small step you could take? Maybe help someone out who has fewer opportunities. Support a program that's trying to create more equitable chances. Or even just share these ideas. Get people thinking differently about success. Something to mull over.
That's all for this episode of the Deep Dive Cast. Thanks for joining us. We hope you gained some valuable insights. Be sure to tune in next time for another deep dive into the world's best ideas. Until then, keep learning and growing.